Hi guys, it's Hafsa. So I've recently watched a lot of these IB tips videos, and although really helpful, a lot of them provide general study tips that really could be applied to anything: IB, A-levels, GCSEs, even uni. In this video, I will try to tailor the content specifically to the IB and my experiences with it. Some of the advice can be applied elsewhere, but it would all be targeted at IB learning. So let's get into it. So I was going through some of my old stuff the other day and I saw some IB books. I thought I would do a video talking about my experience and sharing some tips that might help people that have already started it or are looking to start it. The IB stands for the International Baccalaureate. It's basically equivalent of A-levels, so you do it after secondary school and before uni. It's a 2-year diploma program and you take 6 subjects from one of these. Alongside that, you also have to complete an extended essay, which is like a mini 4,000-word dissertation, theory of knowledge, which is a core subject that really aims to make people reflect critically on different areas of knowledge and our means of understanding. Lastly, you have to do CAS, which is creativity, action, and service. So you take on a series of creative, active, and voluntary activities. You do them regularly, you post evidence, and make reflections. I think you should consider doing the IB if you haven't already decided what you want to study in university. You can use all these different subjects as like a stepping stone to help you decide. If you like a more streamlined approach to learning, because the IB is very much centered around creating this like well-rounded individual that knows some stuff about each area of knowledge. So in my opinion, it's about deciding whether taking on all these things and giving them an equal amount of priority is for you. Do you already know what you want to do in uni? If the answer is yes, then you need to do a lot of research to figure out what subjects you need to take. For example, you want to study pharmacy, then you have to do high-level chemistry and one other high-level experimental science. My IB subjects were high-level English, high-level chemistry, high-level geography, standard level biology, standard level Spanish ab initio, and standard level math studies. So instead of doing an art, I took 2 sciences. I will talk in detail about each of my subjects, and because I want to provide a more like balanced experience, I contacted some of my friends that also did the IB. So if you aren't looking to do any of my subjects, stick around because I will provide tips on some of the other subjects with the help of my friends. Before I get into all that though, I want to talk briefly about TOK, EE, and CAS. So deciding what to do for your extended essay. Everyone already knows this, but you just have to pick something that interests you. So in my case, it was a case of like I had so many things that I wanted to look into, but my supervisor preferred for me to do something different because like the areas I was interested in were too broad and couldn't really be covered in 4,000 words. So I ended up doing something that I was vaguely interested in and I did well in it, but wasn't really memorable for me. I would say you just need to find that balance. Do something you're interested in, but also something that's applicable that you can actually write a good essay about. So yeah, just don't be like me and be too rigid in your thinking. You need to actually be open-minded. But yeah, it was still a good experience. For some reason, I only have vague memories of theory of knowledge. I was speaking to a friend about this and she gave really good advice actually. She said her approach was that whatever essay you write, make sure the people around you read it, make sure your friends read it, make sure your teacher reads it, and make sure it makes sense to them. With theory of knowledge, I think it's really easy to get caught up in your own ideas because everything is so like conceptual. It's really easy for you to keep writing stuff and it makes sense to you, but it wouldn't make sense to anybody else. Every single week I went to the gym, practiced guitar, attended my Amnesty Society meetings. I was president in the 2nd year, which was my CAS project. The school I had come from prior to that, nothing like that was encouraged. So I was just always on top of all the stuff I needed to do and writing my reflections. I even got a CAS award because of that actually. It's part of your curriculum to do all these extra things. You would most likely have done them either way. Now we're going to be talking about English Literature A, high level. The text could actually appear in any form. It could be from books, poems, speeches, even like a cartoon strip. Once I realized this, I started to really engage with everything I read, even if it wasn't in the classroom setting, with the mindset of like, if this came up in the exam, how would I analyze it? You actually have an unseen paper with text that could be in any format. While reading some random article online, at the back of my mind, I would always be picking it apart and trying to get a deeper meaning of it. Even if I saw like a billboard, I would think like, what message is this trying to portray? I would even look into the graphics and the placement of the words. You start to figure out what kind of language is inflammatory, what kind of language is waffling, and you would know not to adopt these practices in your own essays. The major thing I did was just to essentially turn everything into like a learning experience for myself. And when it comes to the books you're studying, everyone already knows this, but just like annotate like hell. Have different highlighters that signify all the different themes in the book. I also spoke to a friend who did German literature A. She basically said a similar thing in that she just like engaged with everything she was seeing, practiced writing essays, which helped her improve her analytical skills. So next up is Spanish ab initio. This was my first time doing any kind of Spanish. I guess my approach to it was similar to English in that I tried to diversify my learning outside of the classroom. I think the Spanish ab initio course doesn't actually have a set list of words, or maybe there was and my teacher just didn't tell us. So it was just like get the basic vocabulary, basic grammar patterns down, and then from then on, this might sound crazy for a beginner, but you need to start looking at newspapers, watching movies and TV shows, even cartoons. I think you just need to approach it in that you're learning the language because it's going to be beneficial to you, not because you're going to take an exam in it. Otherwise, I feel like you would start to struggle and panic about all the things you have to cover. And I guess the way my teacher motivated me really, in the first day of class, she sat me down, she was like, okay, so think of it like this. You're a level 0 in Spanish. If today, the first day of IB, you had to take an exam in all of your subjects, you're going to get at least like 5 out of 100 in maths, chemistry, English, all those subjects, even though you haven't had any IB lessons. You have to acknowledge that you're level 0 and you need to work really hard to match the level of all of your other subjects. Also spoke to someone who did Chinese ab initio. Even though it's both ab initio, the approach for that is a bit different. I think there was a vocab list. Everyone was literally just Chinese characters. By the time they got to the exam, it was like all the words they had learned were suddenly highlighted. The general IB languages advice would just be to like have a vocab book for each of your languages. Instead of using my phone while I'm on the train, I would take out my vocab book and try to memorize all the words. Yeah, it really helped. Next up is the individuals and societies subsection. So I took geography at higher level. I think the best way to study geography is to make sure you're familiar with the syllabus, topical issues and current affairs, and just everything currently happening with regards to the topics you're taking. Whatever essay you write, you need to present case studies. For example, if you're answering a question about hazards, case study is Chernobyl. I don't know. Chernobyl. So many developments with regards to its impacts on people. It doesn't just last for a few years. It's something that lives on, and there's always so much research undertaken to continually highlight all of that. Another example is the China one-child policy. So I actually remember the week we were going over this in class was the week that the restriction was formally lifted. At that point, it was like everything that was in our textbooks about that case study was suddenly outdated. Now you know all of these case studies, but what good is it if you can't incorporate it properly into an essay? You need to practice essay writing a lot. I really enjoyed high level geography and I was always really enthusiastic about learning it because it was fun, but it was also a lot of work. Apparently some of the content is actually similar to geography. I guess it would be a bonus to do both because then there's a little less for you to learn. One of them also said that there's a trick to answering ESS questions. Well, not like a trick, but there's like a format. You just need to do a ton of past papers so you can like figure out what that is and familiarize yourself with it. Very, very content heavy. To manage all of that, you need to have a real interest in the topic. One of my friends said what she found hard was finding the balance between providing content and doing analysis in her essays. They also said that each essay was kind of like a research project. You need to allocate a lot of time, be aware of the key historical dates that you need to know. Because there's so much to learn, you can't actually use flashcards, or else you would have like an infinite number of flashcards. So they advised that you should do revision pages as opposed to revision flashcards. Even though I took it as standard level, it sometimes felt like a higher level subject because there was just so much to do. We had a pop quiz practically every single class, and he'd pick a random person and you had to explain it in a way that makes sense to you, makes sense to him, and also makes sense to everyone else in the class. That used to be frustrating to me because I had so much content to cover, whereas my teacher's approach was more like he would teach us the main stuff that we needed to know, and then it was our responsibility to learn everything else. Eventually, I actually became really thankful to him because all the topics made sense to me thanks to him like teaching it in detail. Next up is chemistry higher level. So with chemistry, it was like in class our teachers would teach us all the main stuff that we needed to know. We did a lot of tests. Well, I got a 6 in my last test, so that means I didn't need to work that hard. I needed to work really hard. I spoke to my friend who did it, and physics was filled with tears, but the way she overcame that was she would always do a bunch of problem sets, and you might struggle with it. You just need to go through every single thing with your teacher. Next up is math studies. There's honestly not much to say. You just need to practice a lot. I remember our classes were 20% actual learning and then 80% practicing and asking questions. So So it's getting kind of dark now, which is why I had to change the angle. Another advice I would give regarding IB maths in general, higher level, standard level math studies, is that whatever level you're in, persevere and don't go to your first class and be like, oh my god, this is so hard, I'm leaving. If you're in high level, you might think it's too hard, I'm going to standard level. If you're in standard level, it's too hard or it's too easy. Stick with it for a while so that you know that you've challenged yourself enough. Friend of mine who did film studies has said apparently you also have to do like a documentation for the movies you make as well. Delegate time for each and everything so that you can move at a comfortable pace. My sister actually did art in IB, and what she said was the good thing about IB art is that it's kind of flexible. She started looking into contemporary African artists. Just really begin to look at it through a lens that excites you so that you can actually have the motivation to do all the work that needs doing. This was a very long and chatty video, which is very different to my 2 other videos. Hope you enjoyed. If you want to talk about the IB, let's talk in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and stay tuned for my next video. Bye!